Welcome back to another episode of Beauty and the Priest. I'm Fiona.
Well, I'm Jim, and today what we thought we'd talk about is how to be a good friend, particularly by active listening or good listening.
Good one.
So maybe if you want to start, Fee.
Okay, so we've been chatting about this actually, and it's just looking at some of us have a really good skill set of listening. There are people that listening comes naturally to them. I'm not one of them because I'm a talker. You may have picked up on that. So how do we be there for someone and be there in their moments and let them, like as they say modern day, hold space for them without hijacking the conversation, turning it around to be about us? Or in my case, what I mentioned to you before, Jim, was when I get excited about something, I want to interject with something relatable and maybe something helpful, when really all they need is for me to be there and listen. So that's something that I've actually done a lot of work on practicing myself and doing some training in as well. But do you have any thoughts? Does it come naturally to you to just sit there and listen to someone? And are you aware of what your urges are when you're listening to them?
Oh, I'm sorry, were you talking to me?
You really listened well then.
I do. I think, just thinking back about things, I think that I am naturally a better listener. I think that is something that probably is true. But even then, it's still, I've done a lot of work on it. I found myself at certain times when somebody's been talking about something thinking, oh, I know all about this, let me tell you about it. Or look, there's this, but I also want to tell you about this, or this is what happened to me that was similar. Those types of things, which I think is quite common to a lot of people. You know, you want to relate to the other person, and they're telling you about a car accident they were involved in, and you go, oh, it's like that car accident I was involved in. No, it's not. This is them sharing about what's going on with them. So it's really hard to be able to sort of switch off your own thing while still remaining active and really trying to engage with them in what they're talking about. It can be quite difficult.
It can be quite difficult, and it really is it's a really strong way that we can show up for someone and show up for a friend in their need. And it's something that some of us need to practice, and for some people it comes super naturally to them. So people that are drawn into, you know, it's usually the quiet carer, helper personality types that can just sit there and listen and not feel the need to interject, hijack or anything, but just be there with comforting words rather than and comforting questions rather than their opinion and their view. But so I think, first of all, it's really important to acknowledge that if listening doesn't come naturally to you, it's not a flaw in your personality. It just means that it's the exact opposite end of the spectrum to a strength that you have. And also, you know, getting excited about something, wanting to relate to people. So it is something that some people will need to practice. And it's not like, don't use that as an excuse to let yourself off the hook, though. It's like, oh, I'm not a good listener, so I'm just going to keep jumping in here. It is something that to develop and use that personal development is really, really powerful for relationship building, deeper, stronger connections with other people. I guess, first of all, it's really important to identify what type of listener am I, and what is my natural response to conversations, and what do I need to do about that? And I guess even to the other end of that is, do I listen too much and I don't input enough?
Yeah.
And do I need to maybe ask some more questions to dig a little deeper? Or do I maybe need to occasionally say, yeah, I've experienced something really similar, so this must be really hard for you. Not, I know what you're feeling, because you don't, like you just said, but this, I can imagine that this is really difficult because I've experienced something else, and that actually connects you to that person on a deeper level. But it's really being able to navigate how and when to use those listening and responding tools, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think the other part of it is we're not talking about it from a professional standpoint. So very different being a counsellor or whatever other role you might have, or just being a friend. And we're talking actively about being a friend, which is something totally different. So I think there's a really good book out there. It's quite a few years old now, but How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it started a whole movement some time ago. But it is a great book, and it's relatively timeless. And some of the principles in that book are really great for understanding that. So if that is an area that you're perhaps challenged in, then How to Win Friends and Influence People, I suggest, is a really good book. And it's really quite an easy read as well.
Yeah.
But no, I think that it is really important, if you're going to be a good friend and a good listener, to recognize if somebody's sharing, particularly something that they're sharing from the heart, that's something that might have hurt them or damaged them, or really causes them some pain that they really want to relate to. Try to resist the urge to turn it back around into you. It's one thing to say, oh, I think I can get where you're coming from because something quite similar happened. But if you then go on to say, and this was that thing that happened to me, and then add a whole lot more words on afterwards, you're no longer relating, you're almost comparing and contrasting what your experience has been, which is not what a good friend would do.
No, exactly. And I guess it's also, it's that self-awareness as well, as just next time, if you're not quite sure what type of listener you are, next time you're having a conversation with somebody, see how many times you interrupt. Like I literally have I run a communication, it's like part of a customer relations course that I train, and the communications part of that is I make two people, like I pair them up and make them sit down, and one of them has to talk while the other one just listens.
Wow.
And the only thing they're allowed to say is to ask more questions, to dig a little deeper into what they're saying, but they can't put their 2 cents worth in or say what they've done that's similar. And it's to help them recognize, what are your urges? How many times did you want to jump in and go, oh, me too, or yes, I went to Paris. So it's like, so talk about anything you want, and the other person's literally only allowed, the only time you speak is to ask questions about what they're telling you, not to input. And the outcome is really quite mind-blowing for people. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how many times I like wanted to say something and then couldn't. And then they have to evaluate each other, but how did they go? How did they interrupt you? Did they put their 2 cents worth in? But like you were saying about sometimes people are having a difficult time and they just need someone to listen to them. Like some people just need space to
process.
Just to process. And for me personally, I process information out loud. So I'm usually walking around the house talking about what I'm about to do, because when it comes out of my mouth, it's like my brain processes it a lot better, whereas other people are more internal processes. But it's not just when somebody wants to tell you something difficult in their life. It's the same thing if somebody's telling you about some exciting thing that's happened. Like, hold that space for them when they're saying, hey, I won a prize, or I succeeded or achieved this. Oh yeah, I've done that too. Oh yeah, well, I achieved this. That's also just as damaging to a relationship as being able to allow them to be in their happy space and allow that moment to revolve around them for a little while and just get excited with them. And that's what empathy is, like allowing them to be in the space that they are, and then being in that space with them, not the too mirroring, but just be excited for them. Do you know what I mean? Empathy, not sympathy.
I think it especially happens when you've got something where it's about your children or something, and you want to share, little Joel took his first steps today. Oh, that just reminds me of like when such and such took their first steps, and are they doing this yet? And it's like, can we just talk about little Joel for a minute?
Exactly. And so this is the thing, and it's okay, like don't beat yourself up if you do that, but be aware of doing it, and then try to hold yourself back a little bit, and maybe once they finish that space. So I've started asking myself, does this person need to know this? Like, do they need to know I've experienced that too? Like, what does this moment need from me? And so I've got a real rule of thumb before I speak, and sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. Like, don't ask my husband. But it's the letters of think, THINK. Think before you speak. I'll put it in the description of this so you can see it written out. But think before you speak. So using those letters, before I open my mouth, is it T, true? Is it H, helpful to this person or this situation? Is it I, interesting to this person? Because it might be interesting to me, but it might not be to you, right? Is it N, necessary that I say this and share this information? And is it K, kind? Is what I'm about to say kind to this person or other people? What's coming out of my mouth? So those are my think before you speak rules to live by.
Sure.
So yeah, and so say for example, what do you do in the situation where you are talking to somebody and it might be something that you need to unload, and somebody does that to you? What do you do, or what should you do?
Well, should, would, could, all
Yeah.
interesting parts, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends on the situation, because sometimes you might be sharing about, oh, I had to put the tow ball on the back of the car and it caused me an issue, and then somebody says, oh, well, this happened to me, and you think, well, actually, I've kind of finished talking about my tow ball, so yeah, let's hear your story. So there is that to and fro, because we are, of course, talking about friendship. It's not a professional relationship, but if it's friendship, then it might be, that was pretty much the end of my story. So there is a little bit of that. The other part is if they are sort of interrupting and you're going, look, I am partway through. Are we short on time here? Are you giving me a quick 10-minute warning because you can go do something else? Yeah, if something else is going on, then maybe I need to be aware of that. But another part is, of course, to be able to say, well, actually, I haven't finished talking about that yet, and I totally relate to what you're saying, or I understand that, but can you just hold that thought for a second, and could I just tell you about the rest of that, and then sort of then talk and continue to talk. It is kind of hard, I think, to develop that as a skill, because it feels like you're being rude, even though you were the one who was being talked over. It can feel like being rude, but I think that's really a necessary skill to sort of develop and talk about in order to be able to have a good friendship with somebody. Is that?
Yeah, and to be able to like honor your needs as well, like that. And there are the same people that are good listeners are usually not all about speaking about themselves either.
Yeah,
and they will always put other people's needs first. So when you need to honor your needs as well, that's when you go, I just really need to. And it always feels really uncomfortable to tell someone to just, shut up and put that on the back burner for a second. But as long as you are kind and your tone is like, the communication is only 7% words, the rest is your tone, your body language, everything. It's just like, if you just give me another minute, like let's get back to you, but I just want to finish telling you about this first. Is that okay? I just need to get this off my chest. Yeah. And be kind and gentle in your delivery. It's not like, hey, I haven't finished, shut up, that's really rude. Yeah, that's not, that wouldn't be a good delivery. But totally, exactly what you said. Get where you come from. Can I just finish mine first, because I really need to just share this.
That's good. Good.
It is good. And so I'm just thinking, so it's like, first of all, with identify what type of listener you are. How is this impacting your relationships? And I'm going to even put it out there that for some people, it really is that the world centers around them. I've had conversations with people that just keep hijacking conversations, and you will say something, they will guaranteed have something better than what you're saying that's happened to them. And they just hijack it and make it all about them and center around them. And those people do exist. And so then it comes back to you and your decisions, like, is it worth even pursuing this conversation with this person? Or do I just let them have the stage and keep the stage, because I'm not going to get anywhere anyway? Is about having that, think before you speak. Is this information even having an impact on this person's life? Or is it just, are they not even, I'm actually just a bunch of hoots and clicks to this person right now, because they're thinking about their experiences.
Yeah, I think that's worthwhile to think about too, but I think it's also really important to have quite a wider group of friends. If you only have a very small group, there are some people who only ever have a very small group of close friends, then I think you need to guard your space a little bit stronger than that. If you've only got, say, 2, 3, 5 friends who you talk to, who you really want to have in that inner circle of yourself, then you need to be a little bit stronger in sort of holding your ground and saying, look, I need to tell you about this now. I don't disagree
about me right now.
That's right. Yeah.
And you know that again, going back to the carers and helpers of the world, their circle of friends, because they really attract people that are a bit needy. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, because the universe, the world needs those carers and helpers for the people that need carers and helpers, right? That's why they exist. But again, like you were saying, you've got to make sure you're finding that balance in your life where you're guarding some of your space as well, because if you are allowing people to take from you all the time, your batteries will go flat, your cup will get empty, all of those metaphors for recharging. And like you said, Jim, is to find other friends who are also carers that are able to feed back into you as well, and give you space and give you time. and be your ear. So it's about, finding that balance in your friend circle. So if you're sitting here watching this thinking right now, yeah, no, I'm always the giver, then it's time to maybe minimize. You don't need to get rid of all these friends that you're giving and caring for, but find some that are actually feeding back into you and spend some more time with them. Because, like, think of yourself as a cup, and you keep pouring out, pouring out, pouring out. If no one's pouring in, or you pouring into yourself with self-care, you're going to have nothing left to give.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that's where the energy space comes in. So yeah. Have you got any other sort of words of wisdom around listening and being there? I guess that comes down to that fish philosophy of being there, right?
Well, I think one of the things that's important is to make sure that you're present and aware of the conversation. I think that's vital in any sort of friendship of what's going on. And there is, of course, a bit of to and fro. Like there is, oh, sorry, the kids are doing this, or whatever else is going on. Then I just need to pause that conversation for a bit because, I've got to give them this, otherwise they'll go off. There is that. But there is also just that toing and froing of conversation that needs to happen, and making sure that you are being present and aware. And one way to do that is to sort of feed back at those little pauses of conversations. So how does that make you feel, or what's going on with that? And do you really catch yourself if you find that you're saying things like, oh, I would do this, or I would have done that, or I would have just gone off my dial, or whatever? It may sound like you're being helpful, but you're actually putting yourself into their conversation rather than letting them tell you about what's going on. And that's not all that helpful.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that's a really great point. And what you've just pointed out there is actually coaching 101. It's about asking them questions, letting them come up with their own answers and solutions. So it's enabling them and more empowering them to be the solution to their own problems. And so empathy is really good. Like, that must be really hard. Saying something like that must be really difficult for you. I can see that's really upset you, rather than, oh, I would lose it. Because like you said, you've just made that about you. That is obviously really hard for you. And that's coaching and asking them questions. Well, what do you think you can do about that moving forward? Or just holding that space for them instead of taking it back. But the other thing about listening and being fully present is body language and openness. Apart from that, what do you call it? Verbal cues, going yes, all that sort of stuff, and the questions and the feedback to understand. So when you said that, what do you mean by that? Like, and asking them for clarifying questions, I call them, right? But the body language, that open, I'm facing you and I'm looking at you, like you said. It's not like, and this is again part of the communications course, it's like you're not typing going, yep. Oh, yeah. No, you've turning around, being fully present. Again, that's part of the fish philosophy, is like being fully there. And I learned this, I don't know whether I've mentioned this before, but I learned that from my daughter when she was 4 years old.
Right.
I was a busy, full-time working single mum. So I would get up at, ridiculous o'clock in the morning, get my kids ready, drop them off before school care, they go to school, I'd go to work, all that sort of stuff. So by the end of the day, get home, they want to tell me about their day. And I'm cooking dinner, organising readers, all that sort of stuff. So my daughter's telling me about her day at Kinder, and I'm like trying to chop up dinner, go, oh, yep, oh, that sounds really good, honey. And, I thought I was listening. She did not. And she grabbed my face and she pulled it towards her with her little hands like this. And she said, Mummy, look my talking.
Look my talking. That's great.
And that's when from that day forward, I would fully stop and be fully facing and present my children when they spoke to me. And it's something, one of my girlfriends, she had kids like way later than I did. So mine was all grown up and hers were little, and I'm like grandma age now. And she did it with her child, was talking to her, and she stopped and turned around and faced her. And after the conversation, I said, oh my God, I loved how you just did that for your daughter. And she said, I learned that from you, watching you with your kids. And I'm like, well, you can thank my daughter, because she taught me. She taught me the look my talking thing.
That's great.
It doesn't matter whether it's a kid or a teenager or an adult or an older person. All we need to do is show up for people at the end of the day. So people don't need much from us, but for us to be there and be fully present and engaged in what they're saying. And whether you're watching this and you're a leader, you're a teacher, you're whatever job you have, or a parent or whatever, that skill is carried across into every single aspect of your life in communications and relationships. So doing a little bit more work on that to build those deeper, meaningful relationships is really worth the effort. And when you're fully present for people and you are being there and fully showing up for them, it has a massive impact on somebody else's life.
Yeah, it definitely can. I'm trying not to hijack the conversation, but I can recall quite a few times in my life where I've really felt quite alone and in a room full of people, and it's more because whatever I've got to talk about or whatever gets steamrolled, whatever else like that. And you think, well, why am I even here? Like, what's the point of me being here? Because nobody here wants to hear anything I've got to say. And I'm trying to be encouraging, trying to engage with other people's conversations, but they're just not. And it can mean so much to somebody just to be able to be heard. Just to be able to listen to.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. You never know who you have come across that just needs you to be there and listen. And I think that maybe I've found that with networking events.
Yes.
That all you are there for is for people to, like, you know, oh my God, elevator pitch you all the way from the beginning to the end. It's like, what would happen if we all went there? So I went on a because that sort of thing bugs me. Like, I want to get to know people, which is why we do the No Ordinary Woman show. But I went to a women's networking event. It was like a full weekend conference, and I made it my mission to not talk about myself or tell anybody about what I do, but ask and learn about other people. So I'm not here to hand out my business card and try to make business out of these people. I'm here to get to know what other people do and make connections. And that in itself was even a challenge, because it's like, you go to a networking event, it's to sell and promote yourself, right? What if we flip that around and go to networking events to actually meet people and connect with people? And Kaylee Chu was a good one for that. Like Kaylee Chu, who we interviewed on No Ordinary Woman, which is on the other YouTube channel where you can check it out, No Ordinary Woman with Fiona Bruffa. But Kaylee Chu, her philosophy is one connection can change your life. And it's about being there and just meeting people with no agenda. I'm not trying to sell you something. I'm not trying to get anything from you, but I want to meet you and get to know you. Anything that happens after that, great. But that's not the agenda or the primary focus. I think if we as humans went out into the world with that attitude, I think could be really game changing.
Very, very true. Yeah, so if you're somebody today who's thinking about that type of thing, thinking about, you don't have many friends or my conversation skills aren't that good, just try some of those tips and you'll find that people will relate to you differently. If you keep the conversation in a space that they feel like they want to share and they want to talk about, it makes a massive difference. So,
absolutely. I love that. Thanks, Jim. I think that was a really good conversation. See what I did there? That was a great conversation. I feel really connected to you. You held space. I probably dominated, but that's my trainer. But I'm not using that to let me off the hook. I'm still going to be working on mine. But thank you all for joining us. You all, the millions and millions of followers that we have, for joining us for another episode of Beauty and the Priest. And
make a friend today.
Make a friend today. I love that. Listen to someone today. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.